Yo, I feel like we as men got to put a little more time and energy into being leaders. I feel like most of the issues that we have in terms of relationships stem from the fact that most men are not leaders. A lot of men feel like just because we're born men that leadership is a birthright. That's just simply not true. And the reality is women are looking for somebody to take a back seat to. They're looking for a man to lead them, a man that knows where he's going, a man that has structure, a man that has a plan. But if you don't have those things, how can you expect a woman to ever take you serious? That's just like going to the airport and buying a ticket, but the lady says, hey, you know, the pilot's never flown before, he's never practiced, he doesn't have GPS, he doesn't know where the hell we going. We just gonna get up there, pray, and freestyle. You're not buying that ticket. So how can you expect a woman to do that exact same thing with you?
Well, I like how you said
that guy's articulate, man. He's good, man.
I like how you listen to it like, yo, who is this guy? He sounds charming.
That guy's good, man.
That's good. Put him on your shoulder, man. I mean, that guy's good. So first, I want you to elaborate on what message you were trying to convey and why you felt it was important to share.
Yeah, man. I feel like men are not really taught to be leaders at a frequency that's high enough. I feel like men are taught to do a lot of things as far as getting money, as far as pulling women, as far as learning how to compete with each other, but not necessarily lead. You know, it's just like in sports. You could have 53 men on the roster, but it ain't but a couple leaders in that locker room. Now, all of them have been trained to compete. Yep. All of them have been, you know, trained to do their sport, but leadership is an intangible, and also it's something that's kind of programmed in you. You know what I'm saying? You're kind of taught to be that way, and I know a lot of it typically comes from the father being in the home, and the father showing you, "Hey, boy, you go your own way. You don't be no follower. You don't do nothing. You need to set your moral code as this. Don't fall short of that moral code for nobody." I feel like that's something that's programmed in you. But when you don't have a father in the home, which a lot of us don't, if we just gonna be honest, you don't really get that. You get more of a emotional way to handle things, or because that's what you see. You see your mom, and you know, again, it's no knock against mothers, because mothers are doing what they can. Right. But as far as like a man and being a leader of a family, it's only so much that a mother can teach you about. You need a man that has showed examples of leadership himself, so you can buy in. But more importantly, him to be able to relate a message. Hey, you are a born leader, and this is what leaders do. And you need to move according to this guideline and this moral structure and this and this and this. I had that, but a lot of my friends didn't. Right. And if you look at our lifestyles today, the disparity can be explained a lot of times with just the father being in the home and setting an example. So that's what I meant by that. We need to put way more emphasis on teaching our young boys how to be leaders, even if it's not our son per se. We all got nephews. We all got little cousins. We all got, you know what I'm saying, little homies in the neighborhood or whatever that like look up to us, or whatever the case may be. We need to be able to teach them something more than, hey, how to go sell these drugs, or, hey, this how you fight, or, hey, you need to pull this woman. This how you have sex. You do this. We need to be taught more than that. We need to be taught leadership qualities and stuff that can actually push us forward as a culture. And I don't feel like a lot of that happens today.
Wholeheartedly, I agree with you 1,000%. Wholeheartedly, right? But the reason why I played the clip, right? Although what you're saying is, you know, men got to be taught to be leaders. You know, that's why, you know, women won't trust a man if he doesn't have direction, structure, this, that, and the third, right? And that clip by itself is great. The first clip by itself is great. Now, when you put them together is where you have, I wouldn't say incongruencies, because everything you're saying is right, but it creates a certain challenge that I don't think people know how to really move around, right? You mentioned when we played the first clip about how, you know, men need to have the ability to express themselves at the stage and so on and so forth. And then you also said that, like, when you are a kid and you fall, people are like, get up, you know, toughen up, man up, this, that, and the third, which kind of falls in line with the second clip of like you saying that, you know, fathers need to teach men how to be leaders. And unfortunately, the way that we are taught to be leaders oftentimes strips us away of our ability to be emotionally connected, right? So the strength that we are taught to have comes with the baggage of not being able to show vulnerability. Emotions are often linked to what you're vulnerable to, right? So especially if you're talking about in the realm of a woman who is looking for you as a leader, I have a couple questions. First question is, if a woman looks for you to be a leader based on how structured you are, right? Knowledgeable, right? And how courageous you are in certain situations, how do you maintain that leadership while being vulnerable and exposing your vulnerabilities? Because a lot of people don't respond well to that.
Again, we are speaking in absolutes.
Sure.
Like as a man, you should be able to do both.
Right.
I'm not saying that you do them both evenly.
Right.
No. As a man, like you need to kind of shift that pendulum a little more because, and I say that because even like the men that are in the household,
yeah,
like the example of the boy falling, right? A lot of men in previous generations taught us solely how to be just cold, cold, non-emotional machines.
Yeah.
That's what they taught.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, that works in career and that works in, competition with other men. But when you get into a relationship, being an emotionless machine, it'll work to the detriment of your relationship. Of course. So my point in both of the videos is, as men, we have to teach both.
Yep.
In the past, we have not taught both. And that's why we have a lot of the issues that we have today. It's very possible to be a leader and to express vulnerability. It is. But again, that's not saying you wake up every day and you complaining and being vulnerable 24/7. That's not what I'm saying. But when you're going through stuff, I mean, it's a reason why men had a high suicide rates and mortality rates are what they are, especially for black men. You know what I'm saying? Because our culture just, makes therapy taboo. Yeah. So we don't really have no way to get it out a lot of times because we're raised to be emotionless machines. But I feel like going forward, when I have my son, I'm going to raise him to do both. Now, you still be a leader. You still set your moral code up and you still, whatever the case may be. But if it's something bothering you, you express that to whoever, man, woman, child, whatever. It doesn't make you less of a man, especially because, I mean, I don't even want to go that lane, but it doesn't make you less of a man. Because if it comes down to it and you have to be a man and step up and be a man and whatever that may be. Yeah. Again, we ain't going to say too much. I don't want to spin it that way, but whatever that may be, you'll be able to step up and be a man in that situation. But at the same time, in your relationship, you need to be able to express your vulnerabilities and all of that. And that doesn't make you less of a man, in my opinion, is what I'm saying.
And absolutely not. But I think where a lot of men struggle, and I don't want to speak for all men, but I think some of the conflicts is, where do you draw the line? Like, I think women would appreciate some form of vulnerability, but every woman's got a threshold, right? Like what's acceptable, because especially at the beginning of a relationship when they don't know the full depth of your strength yet, right? So if at the beginning you're expressing any form of vulnerability and that is the package that you come with, that might not work in your favor, right?
No, the threshold is?
What is?
Kenny said something that was very profound. Okay. Last podcast. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember exactly how it went, but it was something to the tune of, women want you to be vulnerable until they're the issue of the vulnerability.
Yeah, I remember that. That's
very profound. Because that's what that threshold that you're talking about is. Like if you have a woman, right? Y'all in a relationship and you're expressing to her, hey, baby, I feel like, man, I ain't, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing at this job, or I don't feel like I'm progressing at this job a lot, or I don't feel like, I'm being the best brother that I could be to my sisters, man, or, I ain't called my moms in like 2 weeks, man, or my grandma, I ain't went to go check on her. Like they all for that vulnerability. Yeah. But when it's you expressing vulnerability, hey, baby, I feel like you should be doing this more, or I feel like I'm not getting this from you, and that's making me, more checked out of this relationship. That's where the issues come in. Okay. And I feel like that's more of a them problem than a us problem. We shouldn't stop being, expressing ourselves just because it's going to make her feel away or it's going to make her feel defensive, which is what we've been programmed to do in the past. And that's why we have the issues we have. But that threshold, again, is oftentimes when they're the reason for the vulnerability. That's when they take issue. But outside of that, if you're expressing yourself about any other things, they're going to be cool with it. I mean, as long as you're taking care of your responsibilities as a man that you agreed to in that relationship, they couldn't care less. Women want you to be expressive to them and cry on their shoulder and all that crazy shit.
Yeah, but up to what point though, man? Like, let's be real. If you meet somebody today, right? Within the first, 2 weeks, right? You got something going on in your life. Aside from like maybe somebody died or something like that, but just like something that you weren't able to manage on your own properly, right? And it's frustrating you and you're getting emotional about it. You're expressive about how much, it was a failure on your end or how much you are struggling with something, right? Are you saying like women are just as equally into you when you're being that expressive at the beginning versus if you hold off on that later on? Or what are we talking about?
See, again, it's levels to the vulnerability and express. And I think that's why we're having our disconnect at, because with you, when you hear vulnerability from how you explaining it to me, you talking like, okay, I'm vulnerable 24/7. Like, this is who I am. Like, every other sentence is me speaking on my, vulnerabilities and my downfalls and my this and my that and my this and my that. Yeah, I mean, sure, hell no, you don't want to be around nobody like that. If you in vulnerability mode 24/7, I wouldn't want to be around a woman like that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So again, but it's about levels. It's about measurement. If we talking about crying, are you familiar with Allen Iverson?
Yep.
Right. Allen Iverson he cries in every other conversation that he has, whether it's an interview, whether he's talking about basketball, or he's talking about his upbringing, he's crying. When he sees players that used to be cool with in the past or whatever, he cries when he hugs them, and he's just a very emotional guy.
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
Right. But nobody in their right mind will look at Allen Iverson and say he's any less of a man because he's shown in the most clutches of situations, in the most manliest situations, he done stood tall and did what he had to do. But him being emotional is a part of who he is. But that doesn't make him any less of a man. So that's what I mean by that.
And that's perfectly fine. But like, Allen Iverson has enough accolades to do whatever he wants, right? But most men walking into the room for the very first time is not going to carry that into a room with them without, someone preaching about how great of a man he is. So I think at the very least, the introduction of a man doesn't really start with him like boohoo crying about something. I agree. Right. But
you don't disagree though.
Right. So, and I'm not saying it's something that happens every single day. I'm just saying, like you said, there's levels, right? And you're tipping the scale where the proportion of how much vulnerability you can show is not the same as the proportion that you can show to a woman. I'm not saying to be emotionless. I'm saying the proportion of strength versus vulnerability that you can express or expose is a lot less than what a woman can, for lack of better words, get away with in terms of being able to express, right? And I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or whichever, or it should be the same. I'm just trying to determine how much of it are you saying we're supposed to be vulnerable, and how much of it is supposed to be the strong leader in our relationship and our families. Like, what proportion is acceptable? And it might be different for different people, but how does a guy judge that?
I mean, if I had to quantify it, I'd probably say maybe 70-30.
70-30.
Like
okay.
Again, when it's and it's not necessarily you boohoo crying or whatever when you're expressing things. It's you sitting your woman down and being able to have a mature conversation, look in her eye and say, look, I feel like I'm not getting this from you. And I feel like, because I'm not getting this, it's making me check out this relationship, or I don't look at this relationship the way that I used to, or I don't feel wanted in this relationship because you're not paying attention to things
that'll trigger a woman quite a bit.
Any criticism will trigger a woman. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. But we got to get used to doing it anyway.
No, trust me, I know.
You know what I'm saying? So That's what I mean by it. You know what I'm saying? Like, but for a while, for decades, for past generations, men wouldn't even do that. Men wouldn't even sit a woman down and say, I feel like, that you're not paying enough attention to me, or I feel like you're not putting my wants and my needs at a high enough priority level that I feel like it should be. You know what I'm saying? Men wouldn't even do that, have that conversation.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like that has to like change. Yeah. And it has to change drastically. But men just need to become more comfortable expressing ourselves in general. If not, our relationships are going to continue to suffer. Or men going to keep dying at 42, like we've been doing in the past, because we holding so much in. Yeah. And it's just like we trying to keep up this tough facade, and this because this is what my daddy taught me, or this is how my grandpa moved, and this is what your daddy taught you that. True. But him and your mama got divorced and they didn't stay together. They was married for 5 years, 10 years.
Or he was an alcoholic the whole relationship. Right. That's how he vented his issues, or now he's in jail because he did some stupid stuff. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Or grandpa was married 50 years, true, but the last 30 of them years they couldn't stand each other. But they would just stand together just because that was, that's all they knew. And they living in separate rooms, sleeping in separate rooms.
Or the relationship was abusive because it couldn't get no.
You know what I'm saying?
That's very fair. That's very fair. And at the end of the day, it's up to each man to understand exactly what threshold he's comfortable with. Right. And I think what's even more important is to find a woman that matches what you're giving in a way where if you're one type of vulnerability, you need to find a woman that is capable of nurturing that. I agree. Right? At your level, right? Because you shouldn't necessarily have to change how vulnerable you feel you want to be. You just need to be aware that there's going to be a pocket of people that is sustainable in your life with that type of way of being, right?
I agree. Everybody is not in your tribe, and I think a lot of people just get caught up with that in general, trying to please everybody. Right. That's not your duty, and it's an impossible job to do. I'm gonna just be honest. You'll never please everybody. Everybody is not gonna like you. I don't care what you say. You can say all the right things. You can do all the right things. There's gonna be somebody that's saying, "Oh, he frauding." Yeah. Or hey, he ain't. You know what I'm saying? He ain't all he cracked up to be. So what up? So you out here trying to please everybody? Hell no. I'm big on people that are in my tribe. That's who I'm speaking to. Even with the content that we put out, we get a lot of backlash, whatever the case may be, and that's perfect. Because I feel like I'm telling the God's honest truth. And if it comes down to a debate or anything like that, like I tell people all the time, like I don't speak from imagination. I speak from experience. I've lived it. I've done it. I've seen it up close. So anything I'm saying happened. It's not a ideal situation. It's not a hypothetical. It's not a what if, or maybe it's not that. I've seen it. I've done it. I've lived it. You know what I'm saying? So anybody that disagrees or anybody that feels away, I don't care, essentially, because you are ignorant to what my experience is, or what a lot of people's experiences is, or a lot of people, even the ones like supposed to be experts and all that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? But they speak in ideals. Yeah. So what good is you giving me an ideal scenario, or you giving me ideal advice if when I walk outside my door, this world is not ideal? And that's what a lot of people get caught up at. And I feel like that's why I guess my platform and me and, the guys are so, I don't get, I guess because we stand out so much, which is confusing to us. We shouldn't stand out as much, because all we doing is just giving blunt, raw honesty. This is what reality is. I don't care how things are supposed to be. They are not that way. So if I give you advice on how things are supposed to be, and you walk outside and that's not how they are, what good is the advice that I'm giving you?
Yeah.